So we talked a little bit about love, and specifically you mentioned the role of the healer and the importance of love within the process of the healer-healee relationship. My question is there something that a healer needs to do? Aristotle, I think, was the one that said that something along the lines that success isn't a one-time thing. It's something that's repeated, pertaining to a habit. Success is what you do over and over again. So I guess my question is there something that a healer needs to do in regard to self-care, or a habit that they need to engage in to maximize their capacity to provide that safe space, to share that love for another human being? What do we need to do, Kurt, to maximize our capacity to remember we're a part of the ocean?
Wow. So, through my me-search and the research, what I've learned is that, as I was struggling earlier to remember, what Hegel said about spirit making essence identical with its existence. So if essence and existence are identical, we are vast. We are vast. And so we must know that I am coming to you not only in my programmable self, but in my vastness. And in my vastness, I have knowledge of it all. And so in my knowledge of it all, I must be willing to accept myself in my knowing. And my knowing has sacred guidance. So how do I perpetuate that? You are what you practice. You are what you practice. You can theorize anything, but if you don't have a practice that helps you inculcate your principles to yourself and around yourself, I say that you have missed the mark. I think that is essential for us to ask questions of ourselves. There are two methodologies that I utilize. One is Dr. Perlman's concept of Gestalt therapy, which is empty chair therapy. In fact, it's kind of amusing that you asked me this. 2 weeks ago, I sat down and I invited to the empty chair Kurt at 45. And I wanted to talk to him about some of his philosophies and concepts and theories of change, and compare how this 70-year-old is different from that, and how we commingling, and what part of me learned from you, and did I continue to evolve, or am I standing on the shoulders of what was acceptable by you in your community? And it was a very interesting dialogue. It took me about an hour. And then, because I guess I enjoy the punishment, I started saying, well, it's time for me to search my file of people that perhaps I don't have closure with, and invite them to the empty chair as well. Because see, here's what happens. When you're interacting with people, usually they have a defense mechanism. You're talking to them, and it's called procatalyptic responses, where all while you're talking, they're thinking about how they're going to answer that question, so they're not really listening to what you're saying. But this is reflective when it's empty and all you're doing is spilling. And it's very interesting that this is scientific and also psychological and also shamanistic, but it's also biblical, because we talk in terms of spilling, relieving ourselves of that which we have egoically arrived upon. And so as I sat and spoke to individuals that I still had challenges with, I was able to overhear myself release the blockages I had about a willingness to love and expand. And so that's important to continue to look at self. So it's part of the practice. So Gestalt therapy helps me. I also do things like one of my practices, my methodology is to spend 3 minutes in the morning before I start my day just looking at my own face in the mirror and hope that it doesn't crack. But I'll sit there, and the whole purpose of that is before you brush your teeth, comb your hair, or do something, you are having a interaction with your own eyes. Because what we realize is that somewhere around 2 and 3, we realize that we can't see our own faces. And so if we were about to reach for a cookie, we'd look and see what kind of expression mom or dad had, and then we'd reach for the cookie. Or we'd look at the expression if mom had a grimace and reach for the cookie and run like the Dickens, But over the years we forgot that we don't see our own faces. And so we make determinations through the reactions of others. And as a result, we become ingratiating and we lose our individuality. And the individuality is to know how you're answering to the data presented you. And that's a practice. And so the mirror helps you in that. 3 minutes is a long time to do so. It's a process. So some people I'll tell, and even myself, I'll say this is a tough day. So you might only make it through a minute, but each day come back. And so it puts me in touch with what my face really looks like, what my soul is really trying to tell me, what thoughts come up when I am fully present to myself. Because all day I ask others to allow me to be present with them. But if I ask that, I have to also be willing to accept that in myself. And so being fully present is very important to a healing process, to an honest interchange. So practice. What's my practice to reinforce my promise to healing? And so that's something that I realize that each day as I grow, that I must accept there might be areas I could have been wrong about in my processing that need to be reevaluated, because otherwise I'm just arguing with myself to prove something incorrect right. So, which makes me a demagogue, not a healer. I think that having a higher power that you answer to, that keeps one from stumbling into the throes of being a charlatan or a sorcerer, when it becomes about you and how well you do egoically, as opposed to the humbling aspect of healing, which is I'm here to present what I know in good faith and love for you. My motto each day is to ask myself if today I can do the truth in love. If I can do the truth in love. And then at night, as Raiden will remind my consciousness sits with me and says, well, did you do it? Sometimes yes, and sometimes it's, well, you see, the situation was like this, the politics of the soul.
Yes.
And but it's being willing to take yourself to task, being willing to know that we're in it together, that what your quest is as vital as mine, that my peregrination toward truth is not greater than your journey, but that we're in it together and we can learn from the experiences of others. So my ultimate question, which I hope draws some understanding or semblance of an answer to your question, is that I ask myself a very vital question constantly. I ask myself, how do you want to be remembered? How do you want to be remembered? And in order to be remembered as the truth, I must have a practice of truth. And if my practice does not honor how I choose to be remembered, then I can be self-corrective on my own.